WSTV started a show in the 1970s. WSTV was an AM radio station in Steubenville, Ohio. The radio show was The Phone Party. Tom Abernathy was the first host, and he was a very polite gentleman. The show would have a range from city leaders to county commissioners to later on in the morning, somebody would call up and say, the best meatball recipe is the blend of meat. And the second person would call up and say, no, you can make shoe leather taste good as long as you have a good sauce. And the third person would call up and say, no, you want nice airy meatballs. It's in the binding. It's all in the binding. And it would go on like that. Or an 85-year-old woman would call up and go, Tom, I have a 1945 nickel. Is it worth anything? And Tom, being such a gracious host, would say, well, if any of our listeners have any information on a 1945 nickel. And then somebody would call up and say, yeah, it's worth a nickel. And it would go on like that. Very community-oriented, very nice show. Later, though, after he left, things started to change. My first car had my 1972 Dodge Dart Swinger had only AM radio in it. But later on, people had FM radios. Housewives had to go to work. Economic things have changed. And cassette players and 8-track tape players. So the show later on had these mean hosts, who I won't say their names, and they would cut you off in mid-sentence, try to stir up controversy. AM radio turned really mean. That was sort of the beginning of it. If you think about it, a lot of AM shows now, the national shows, they're always going after somebody. They're always criticizing people and such. Imagine you get like 57 people liking your picture on Facebook, or 300 people listen to or watch your video on YouTube's, and you think you're a star because of it. And it took 2 years to get that many hits. Back then, you could talk to thousands of people. Steubenville had about double the population. So this was like social glue. It was very community-oriented. It's hard to imagine anything like that today. I wish we had stuff like that.